How are we doing today?
Hey, Coach. Thanks for joining us. We will begin with Andrew Jones. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hey, Coach. Hope you're well.
I am.
We were just talking to Mac about some of the young guys. It was this time a year ago, some young guys got a lot more opportunity and playing time. And he mentioned J.J. Jones as one of the guys that is kind of maybe have an opportunity to get on the field. What can you tell us about how J.J.'s progressed since he got there? And how close is he to being ready to get onto the field on a more regular basis?
So JJ really, it's good that Coach brought him up. JJ is kind of a focal point. He represents 4 or 5 guys offensively right now that are really young guys that have been working their tail off and are developing, and I think are getting to a point here. I don't know when. I can't tell you when they'll get on the field and they'll get substantial reps, but we've just been very happy with the younger guys, the group that we were excited about them coming in. We haven't really had any disappointments, Andrew. We've got, guys like Caleb Hood and Bryson Nesbitt and JJ Jones and Kobe Paysauer and Gavin Blackwell, just to name a few of them. They're all developing. They're all getting to a point now where you're starting to see what they can give you and bring to the football team. And I really liken it, maybe not quite. We knew a little bit earlier with Josh Downs, but last year in the first half of the season, Josh Downs was still learning. Josh Downs was still cleaning up some things. Josh Downs was still just trying to get where he needed to be from a technique standpoint and an offensive understanding standpoint. That's where these guys are right now. And I think we felt like Josh was ready to start playing, and so we played him the second half of the season, and that built up to his performance at the Orange Bowl. But these 5 guys, they've really done the same thing, and we're really happy because it's a collective group, led by JJ, that I think is improving overall as a group. And so I think that means the future bodes well for us with regards to some of those guys.
How can you gauge someone? I'll stay on JJ just for the sake of discussion.
Sure.
How can you gauge growth and confidence for a player like him in learning what he's supposed to do, but hasn't yet actually been on the field much, except I think a little bit in Georgia State, to kind of show that he could do it, to fortify that confidence?
Well, just talking about JJ, contested catches in practice. Is he doing a better job when he is covered of catching contested balls? Is he doing a better job of catching the ball cleanly when he's running against zone coverage and out in the open? How is he faring in one-on-one situations? You know what I mean? When we throw one-on-ones, all of that stuff has improved for him. Is he blocking better, right? Can he get off press better now than he did earlier in the season? All of these are things that are taught and learned, and you've got to get better at them. And, when they're not, you address the progress by that player with that player. And if you have a whole group that's not getting better at something, we look at ourselves first. If I've got 4 quarterbacks in the room and they're not getting better at something, it's probably on me. If we have 7 or 8 guys in a room that are getting better at press release or at, point of attack, breaking tackles or finishing second level blocks on the O-line, and the collective group is getting better and you have 1 or 2 that aren't, then you address those 1 or 2 because it's usually more about those guys. So that's how we evaluate JJ and everybody really at every position. Is the things that they need to do to play their position are the weak links getting better so that the collective, their whole collective game is getting better. And I think with JJ and some of the others that we're talking about, that's where they are. That's why we're excited about the young guys.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Luciano, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, I hope you're doing well, and thank you for your time this morning. Isaiah Foskey currently leads the FBS in sacks. How are you preparing to face a player of his caliber?
So, you always identify the top sack artist on every team. You've got to, you have to decide is that somebody that we feel like we can handle in just base personnel, without any help? Or is that somebody that we need to double team or get help on or get a tight end over there, get a running back over there? Is he a scheme changer? He is. There's no question. We've got to know where he is all the time. We've got to get help in pass pro with him. I think we feel that way about a couple of their guys. This is a very, very good defensive line, a very stout front 7. They do a good job when they pressure. They do a good job pressuring when they don't bring pressure. And I think physically they do probably as good a job as anybody we played this year at block destruction. So they get their hands in on you. identify what's going on with the direction of the football, and they do a good job of getting off you and tracking the ball. And I think the key to their defense is that front seven. And we've been thoroughly impressed with Notre Dame's defensive line and their front seven.
Aaron Beard, go ahead.
Hey, Phil, how do you balance, tweaking things during an off week versus not changing too much to, trying to fix things when, players, you want to make sure that the players still are comfortable with what they're doing?
So I think you hang your hat on the base stuff, Aaron, and the stuff we do well and we do in rhythm and we do instinctively. But this is a really good example of a year where, we've had to pull some other things out of the toolbox this year to try and help receivers get off the football, to try and help the cast around Sam that is very different than last year. You had explosive wide receivers and explosive running backs in the backfield. This year, we're not as productive at wide receiver. We're probably not as productive at that second running back spot. So what do? Those are yards that you're losing. And you've got to come up with other ways, other approaches to try and replace those yards. Our tight end has become a much bigger part of the offense this year. So the yardage and the production we're getting out of that position is greater than it was last year. And that's making up for some of the things that we lost in other areas. Last year, we had 2,000-yard running backs. This year we don't, but we've got two guys on track to be 1,000-yard rushers this year. One of them happens to be Sam Howell instead. You know what I mean? And the production at the slot position has grown exponentially. I mean, they were so much more productive at the slot position, and we had a really, really good slot last year. So we've had to focus the ball in other directions, and we've had to do some different things offensively to make sure that we push the football to, some of our better players. And I still think there is a premium that is placed on ball distribution. We would like our receivers to be more involved. We want to distribute the ball as equal as we can to everybody, because then you've got to defend everybody. And so that's a battle that we're fighting right now, that we are scheming to promote a little bit. But I think as each game has gone by, we've gotten better, and that's all we can ask of our guys, is we got to continually get better, not make repetitive mistakes. And against a team like Notre Dame, you can't make mistakes. So, we've got to eliminate pre-snap penalties. We got to have great ball security. We have to eliminate, any MAs or technique issues. That stuff has to be clean. When you play a team of this caliber, you've got to play really, really clean football.
Thanks, Phil.
Okay, let's go over to Greg Barnes.
Hey, Phil, what is the battle with getting the other wide receivers, not named Josh Downs, more involved? I know we've talked a little bit about separation and talk about some decision-making from Sam, but can you kind of pinpoint where some of those issues continue to be?
So I think the problems that we had early on was getting off the press. So, you move wideouts around more, we go into some bunt sets at times. We do some things where we're switching our stems and giving receivers an opportunity to release laterally. So I think that problem we're on our way to solving. What I'd like to see is, we want to have more catch production by the receivers. I think as the season has gone on, Sam has a new cast out there. So he's starting to, he's got more confidence in some of those guys. And since we don't have, Greg, that, Diami, one of the great things about Diami was not only was he an explosive threat at the wide receiver position, but he also was in such great shape. So rarely did we have to take him out. He took himself out, and if we had 80 plays, he probably played 60 to 65 of them. And he was able to do that. And when you have his kind of talent, you're able to do that. So when you're dealing with a different personnel, right now we're playing more wide receivers. We're playing 3 or 4 wide receivers in games to keep them fresh, so that all of them are at their peak with regards to performance. So we are playing more guys. We're moving them around a little bit more, and we're doing some things schematically to help get them off the football. And I think we expect to see more production out of the wide receivers in this second half of the season.
Also wanted to ask about the center position. How beneficial was the bye week to get some guys healthy and maybe bring Caden Baker further along?
It's been very beneficial. I am not, if you ask me, do you want to buy during the season? I would prefer not to have one. Not everybody thinks that. I think you want to get into a rhythm of playing football and you want to keep getting it back out on the field. And with the way that, it starts with Coach Brown, right? The way the whole program is run, everything trickles downward. And you would hope that as we go through that process, the team gets better every single week. And I think that has been a moniker here. I think that's been a consistent deal that you see all the time with this team from the day we got here through the first season, the second season, and even this year. The team has gotten consistently better as the season has gone on. And I think that's a sign of some good coaching. I also think it's a sign of great commitment by our players and their focus with regards to trying to take their weak links and make them stronger so that they're a better overall package. And so as the second half of the season goes in, I'm kind of excited for these guys because I think probably some of their best football is yet to come. And we're going to need it because we have a hell of a schedule, on this back half.
Thank you.
Last one for Coach here will come from Ross Martin.
Hey, Coach Longo, is that a kombucha you have on your table there?
It is. You can blame my wife. It's
Yeah.
Jeremy's laughing here. I drink something healthy every day, supposedly. So this is it.
Yeah. Huge kombucha guy over here. You talk a lot about the bye week. But what in particular did y'all really work on? Coach Brown said the focus was as much on Notre Dame, but more on kind of y'all and what you wanted to improve on. He mentioned some things. I'm interested to see what you think was the focus on your offensive group to get better with in the 7 days you had.
I mean, when you get more time, it can be dangerous, Ross, because you can put in a lot of stuff and too much thing, and you got too much time to think and go through everything. So, I just from a personal standpoint, I usually caution myself, but on doing that, I think there are things that we want to be really good at with regards to what we do offensively, and the things that we're doing well are not the ones that we focus on in that off week. The things that we want to continue to do that need to be better, we put a great emphasis on those areas so that maybe we can get them up to par. And then you're able to take a little bit of a longer look at some of the things that you're not doing well, and you have to ask yourself again: is it coaching? If it is, we can correct it. If it's technique and focus, you can correct that with the players. But if schematically it's just not a good move, or our players aren't capable of doing what we're asking them, then you eliminate it. And so to have an extra week gives you some time to evaluate and look at some things. So there were a lot of studies done during the off week with regards to production in all areas of the offense. I get to take a look back. I went back and watched the entire season from a play calling standpoint as an OC, just to evaluate myself and be critical. And if I have made mistakes during the first half, I'm going to eliminate them. The things we ask the players to do is if you're focused, you shouldn't make the same mistake twice. And I certainly don't want to do that as a coach, neither do any of our coaches. So if we've got something in each area, in each room that needs to get better, this week gave us that extra week gives you a chance to hone in on it and either eliminate it or get better at it. And so now coming back into this game plan week for Notre Dame, where we're actually going to be playing on Saturday, you'd like to think there's a better product taking the field on Tuesday when we head out there, because we've corrected, polished, and fixed some of the issues that we felt like we had. And so this week will be complete focus on the game plan for Notre Dame.
And when you looked at your play calling, it's pretty interesting. What did you kind of observe as you self-scouted kind of what you did play calling wise? Because obviously that's something that's always criticized, good or bad, by fans, media, et cetera. What did you think about how the play calling was and how you can get better, or what you saw?
Well, the criticism is not something I concern myself with as much as how I would criticize myself. We've won by 50 and lost by 50, and somehow I get criticized. We all do. It's just the nature of the game. I think the critical part of it that helps us is to just, you've got to be, I talked to a number of coaches on the staff in the office and outside, friends of mine that I respect their opinion. And I've said, hey, you know what? I don't know if I did a great job here, or if we can do a better job getting X player of the football, or if we can protect this in a better way, or do we need to trigger this thing quicker because we're asking too much of the O-line. And you look at all those things, I think, and if you really want me to be honest with you, I would tell you that I don't know if my play calling on first down, it hasn't been any different than it has been the last 3 or 4 years, but we haven't been as productive in the games that we lost. In the games that we did not win, our first down production on offense was not as good. And so my first inclination is just to blame myself. I got to go back and look at all the play calls. And, you know, if nothing else, I am paying much more attention and putting a greater emphasis, probably the better way of putting it, on the first down calls, because that production, especially against a defense like Notre Dame, really can make or break the drive, particularly the first play of a drive. And so that's that with after evaluating everything, Ross, that's the area that I felt like I can't tell if the play calls have been bad or good. They've been good schematically, but now am I asking players to do things that aren't good, or are we too predictable on first down? All those things I ask myself. And so the emphasis right now in my mind is I want to be an elite play caller on first down. I think that's the best thing I can do to help our football team as an offense coordinator. And so that is my emphasis going into this weekend for the rest of the season.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, Coach, thanks for a couple of minutes. Appreciate it.
Okay, y'all have a good week. We'll see you Saturday.